Hi everyone, Evie here, the Greek Goddess of Great Reading. I'm finally in Greece, my home country, as I keep saying, what with my moniker and all. Sorry for my face, I'm burnt, or hopefully it will be tan eventually, but for now I'm just gonna have a very red face. Hopefully you can ignore that and just focus on the review. So today I will be reviewing All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. Theodore Finch wants to take his own life. Violet Markey is devastated by her sister's death. They meet on the ledge of the school bell tower, and so the story begins. It's only together they can be themselves. But as Violet's world grows, Finch's begins to shrink. How far will Violet go to save the boy she has come to love? So when I read the description on the back of this book, I was kind of worried it was going to be similar to a book I just read recently, My Heart and Other Black Holes by Jasmine Wanga. And considering I just read a book recently about suicide in teens, I wasn't sure if there would be a different spin in this book, and so it made me a bit skeptical at first, but in the end, I really liked this book. Though both of the main characters are sort of plagued with their own issues, their own problems, which cause them to have suicidal thoughts, they don't read as sort of a whiny type of character that is constantly complaining about everything in their life. Violet is a little more so, but because of her sister's death, she finds it very hard to sort of see the good in things, which is understandable, and it is only a year later, but she sort of has extenuating circumstances every time at school a professor asks her to do work. She usually just kind of looks at them and gives the excuse that her sister is dead, and they sort of crumble and let her just stay in her own world. But Finch, who comes into play when he meets her on the bell tower of school, where Violet is thinking of jumping, and so is Finch, he manages to sort of bring her out of that bubble and break it and not give her the extenuating circumstances that everyone else has been allowing her for the past year, and sort of walking around her on eggshells because of what has happened to her. Finch was a really likable character. He was so charismatic and very almost hyperactive in his ways. He's always thinking of something, always saying something interesting, always coming up with some sort of prose. You could really tell he was falling hard for Violet, just became completely overwhelmed with her and how he felt about her, and it was really romantic. But as the sort of description implies, it's not all a good story. It is a story about suicide. Finch and Violet both have those thoughts. You don't really realize it as you're reading the book. It's not quite obvious that Finch has bipolar disorder. If you're not familiar with bipolar disorder, you kind of go through sort of episodes where you are very productive and you don't sleep and you are constantly wanting to do something physical, do something productive. Finch does that throughout the book. He rarely seems sleeping. There's points where he hasn't slept for days, but that didn't clue in with me. And then there are periods where he also gets very sad. It's kind of the nature of bipolar disorder. But as Violet begins to hang out with Finch and they begin to sort of discover through a project they have to do together, they begin to discover their home state by exploring it with each other. They end up exploring themselves and each other. And through that, Violet is able to come to terms with what has happened to her sister and what has happened to her and the world around her. But Finch, on the other hand, has more issues than Violet knows how to deal with and wishes she could help him with. But unfortunately, bipolar disorder is not something that true love can cure. It is something that requires therapy and perhaps medication. And I'm not sure if Finch is on any sort of medication throughout the book. His family is a little distant from him and doesn't seem to understand what exactly is wrong with him. So they're kind of a sore spot in the book. Violet gets really upset with them at certain points because of how they treat him and how they don't understand him. But honestly, this book was amazing and I highly recommend it. It's very helpful too because at the back of it, it has sort of helplines for suicidal people who have suicidal thoughts, so helplines in different countries, which was very beneficial to have those resources, because sometimes I feel like if an author writes a book about suicide, that it might sort of have a reverse effect, and the fact that it could glorify suicide and cause teens who read these books to actually go through with it. And so it's good that even if that might happen, that the authors still provide those resources at the end of their books when it's such heavy material that they're dealing with. And it's really smart of Jennifer Niven and as well Jasmine Wanga, who did it as well at the end of their books. So I highly recommend you guys pick up All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven at a bookstore near you. If you guys have read it, let me know what you think in the comments below. My Twitter and my website will be once again linked in the bio. Again guys, if you have any recommendations of books that you want me to read and review, let me know. You can always send me a message on Facebook or on Twitter. I'm in Greece now, so there is kind of crappy internet and I'm busy doing other things, but I am still reading Netherwood by Michelle Lang. I kind of got sidetracked with this book, so that will be my next review. I'm Evie, the Greek goddess of great reading, and until next time guys, keep reading.